right, everyone. Welcome to Chet at the Shop. This is a special cast. This is episode 3. I've been waiting quite a while to do this with this gentleman and have this conversation. It is Memorial Day weekend, so it makes it that much more special. So my guest today is the president and founder of WholeVet, which is an organization that helps veterans doing transition from active duty to going to be a civilian again. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce this gentleman, Mr. Dale Robbins.
Thank you, sir. It's an honor to be here, Chet. An honor for us to do what we do and to have guys like you and Addison, et cetera, that believe in what we're doing and believe in the cause. So thank you. I've been looking forward to this as well, man. I've been excited all week.
Yeah, I have. I think it's important because, and we're gonna talk about a lot of things here. And like I said, this might be an extended cast because this is, to me, an organization that has awareness, but could use some more. I mean, it's a nonprofit organization, and it's a grassroots movement. And I really feel in my heart, anybody listening to this cast, please pay attention, listen, understand the vision, the mission, and we'll talk about, obviously you could talk about how that people can donate and things like that toward the end, but just, take the time out, and I would really appreciate it if you just listen to this cast because there's going to be a lot of information that's beneficial, not only to veterans, but also to the general public. So with that being said, Dale, what was the initial thought with WholeVet? What was the brainchild, and how did it come to light?
So, as I've shared with you and others, I'm not a veteran. I never served. You mentioned the word vision. Everything we do in our life really is wrapped around vision. And I've said before that WholeVet is a vision fueled by passion, or passion encapsulated within a vision. So foundational to what we do is to encourage and inspire those that we serve. For me personally, having never served, unbeknownst to me, as I was at Cisco Systems for quite a number of years, they, like a lot of other corporations, have veteran affinity groups. So I had joined their veteran group in late 2009, and by the summer of 2010, sent out this really innocent email of, hey, what do you think of bringing soldiers from the Warrior Transition Battalion at Fort Bragg up to Cisco for a day to encourage? We had a veterans email alias or leadership email alias, and about 5 or 6 of these guys and ladies, all higher up the food chain than I, responded with a phrase, "That's great, Dale, let us know what you need from us." I don't know how to do this. I don't have the authority to do this. But it was a great idea, and it came from a conversation with a gentleman out in San Diego. And we started this Cisco event in 2010. One site, Research Triangle Park. That day, we had 30 soldiers from Fort Bragg, from the Warrior Transition Battalion. And I'll never forget, I was about 1.5 years away from having both hips replaced. We had leadership from Cisco fly in from D.C. and other areas. It was a completely non-corporate event. It was beautiful, man. We got to a point in the agenda where our speaker, who was very eloquent, very good public speaker, was taking Q&A. And I'll never forget, my wife came and spent the whole day with us, and I'm sitting on a bar stool, basically. It was very hard for me to stand and walk. And I keep seeing this gentleman, African-American gentleman. I can see his face right now. He's on the 3rd row, and he just had the look of, man, I got a question, and I'm maybe a little insecure or unsure whether I can pose this question. And Chet, he raised his hand very tentatively. I watched him, and he asked our speaker, he said, "Is there hope for me?" Dude, half the eyes in that room had tears in them. And I cut my eyes at my wife and looked at her. And at the end of the day, his question had much more to do than just, is there hope for me to find a job? He was basically going to be med boarded out, right? That question was much deeper. And at the end of that day, I looked at her and I said, I don't know what we've started today, and I don't know where it goes, but God was in the middle of it, and let's go home and rest. So
yeah. Wow.
We build this event, we build a mentorship program, and I realized after a few years that there was a much bigger vision that I was capturing that was being revealed to me, and it could never be fulfilled within a corporation. It was going to have to be done as a separate entity, so to speak. So we put WholeVet on paper, and in 2016, I spent the year preparing for WholeVet, going through a lot of family stuff, medical stuff with one of our daughters. It was a brutal year in many ways, but a beautiful year. I sat down with leaders of other programs, from Camp Lejeune to Raleigh and RTP, et cetera, and said, this is what I think we do. And every one of them said, you got to do this. So we started WholeVet in 2017. It came from those years of learning and really building a solid network. So we had a solid network by the time we launched WholeVet in 2017.
Wow. I mean, that's a lot to take in. That's an incredible story that you had an event and one gentleman's impact on your organization that you wanted to find and do good by. That's really powerful, because sometimes just folks in general, it's hard to admit if something's going on that isn't the norm or you feel kind of shy. But whoever that person is, if you're listening, you started something that's going to help a lot of folks.
Yeah.
So I don't know who you are, but thank you. I hope this reaches you, because you sparked a movement.
Yep.
It's difficult, I would imagine. I never served, but my father is a Marine, retired Marine, or being that Marine Corps veteran. He was actually in the wing division at Cherry Point during the Vietnam era. So he was there, and he still to this day has fond memories of the Marine Corps. And one of his affiliates, one of his close friends from the Marine Corps, is still active. I never mention names, as everybody knows, but he's a very active member of the Marine Corps, and he's not the spring chicken, but he's still doing what he can to assist and help veterans and active military as well. So I took a lot away from what you said, and it sounds like you were inspired by one person. So once you get the inspiration, once you founded WholeVet, what was next? Like, what was your next thought of, okay, I have this idea. I know it's going to stick. I know it's going to do good. Now what?
There were, back to this gentleman, through this life journey, there have been consistently men and women have come into my life that inspired me. And, many times in society, we'll look at the television or social media and see this famous person inspired me. These people would consider themselves everyday people, and many in the trenches working for other nonprofits, or the master sergeant who brought those soldiers up from Fort Bragg that day, Cedric Minor, still a good friend. These people have inspired me personally. When we started WholeVet, we already had a solid network. And what I put on paper, and probably made 50 different iterations of this, we have been building out. So we already knew that bringing veterans and service members and military spouses to a corporate campus worked. It got them, like us, out of your everyday life, the patterns, bring into a different setting, and hopefully to encourage and inspire, right? So when we started WholeVet, we already had a lot of contacts and friends, and so there was, at a lot of our events, our speakers will say, you got to have a plan. You got to have a plan. And that's very wise. And then I'll be the guy that gets up there on rare occasion, or maybe on occasion, and say, you know what, you're going to have your plan, and you're going to get surprises in your plan. That's just life. So we go into this thing with WholeVet. We incorporate as a nonprofit. There's a process with this. In February of 17, and we held our first corporate campus visit at Biogen, right around the corner from Cisco, in April of 17. And then we're at Deutsche Bank, and then we're at Caterpillar, and now we launch into Wilmington to PPD in 18. So there was somewhat of a plan of knowing we can work within our network to launch these events, these corporate campus visits. And there were times that I tried to push doors open, like to get into Jacksonville, North Carolina, to get to Camp Lejeune. And I was ahead of our time. 2018, spent a lot of time trying to get to Jacksonville, and then realize you're beating your head against a wall. Then in 2019, sit down at lunch in Jacksonville with a bunch of Marine leaders from different organizations. Door opens up. So, yeah, we had a plan. We're going to start here, start there, and just see what doors open and where they take us. We've got great relationships with North Carolina State University, done some work with UNCW, different community colleges. So it's sometimes the plan is just played out as we put on paper. Other times you get these beautifully nice surprises of, oh, come over here and do this. So did that answer the question? It's really been a plan with a walk of faith.
That very inspiring. And everybody who listens to this, I always mention this is a motivational, inspirational podcast, and that was a true testament to what I'm trying to convey to the audience. It's, for me, when you volunteer and you sign up to go into the armed service, it is unselfish. It is, you want to make a difference and you want to make the world better. I don't know if a lot of people realize what's involved. Like, again, I was never enlisted. I'm not a veteran. I was never in the service, but I have a lot of friends that I grew up with. I grew up right by West Point in upstate New York. I grew up in a little town called Washingtonville, and they had an air base there, Stewart Air Base, right in Newburgh, New York. And I had a lot of friends that came and went growing up because, they'd be stationed and then they'd be transferred. And it was always kind of like the revolving door. But what was interesting was you get to get the background of so many different people who have been so many different places. But the common denominator was their love of this country.
Yeah.
That to me is special. That to me hits home because a lot of people don't realize when you get up in the morning and walk out of your door, you have freedom. You're free. You can do what you like. You have a lot of options. When you look around the world, that's not necessarily the case. And I don't talk about politics or religion or anything like that. This is just for me, my point of view, my perspective. This country is always wanting to do better.
Yeah.
That's huge. And with that being said, WholeVet wants to do better.
Correct.
And for you, what does better look like? Meaning, what the listeners who are listening right now, and what could you say to them that they can do maybe their part to help make WholeVet better? I have this phrase I think I've shared with you. Everything we do is multi-level, multi-directional. Even that answer is multi-level. You brought up donating. We're at a place where our further growth is going to require hiring a staff member. When I put WholeVet on paper, I sat back and looked at it probably 50 times and went, yeah, that's it. But let me go talk to some people that know more than I do, or they've been at this longer than me. And I realized we'll need 3 to 4 full-time paid staff members to run this. So that's one thing. It's time to bring in some financial partners. We've been really blessed, man, with the people that believe in us. Down to the tactical level of doing better, I may have shared this with you. I'm our biggest fan and biggest critic. So at our events, and I've also shared this, the greatness of our events is you only have to listen to Dale for about 5 minutes. And then he'll hand off the microphone to really smart people, to veterans and military spouses. But I will go sit in the back and critique what we're doing. Not what they're doing, but where did Dale miss it on this event? We could have zigged a little here, zagged a little there. We're always striving to do better for one reason, to serve the people that trust us to come and hear what we have to say. I've said this over and over. WholeVet is made up of a lot of people that believe in our vision, that have different logos and different email addresses. We've got great friends, man, and so many nonprofits. I start naming them off: the USO, Onward Opportunity, the American Legion, Hives for Heroes, great nonprofit. We could talk about this all day long. Part of what we have done, you said movement. You've said that a couple of times. I never used that term, but others have used that term. They've used the term with WholeVet that we have built a platform, and we have. I sat down with a combat Marine veteran my wife and I did in Wilmington about 3 years ago. And if he hears this, Ray Charfaros, beautiful dude, Marine combat vet, and Ray wouldn't mind me sharing his name. And we sat down, hadn't seen each other in about a year.
And we're at a restaurant in Wilmington. He sits down, he looks at Ginger, and then he looks at me. He said, "Brother, do you know why we believe in you? Do you know why we believe in WholeVet?" And I just looked at him like, "What you got?" He said, "It's pure and it's real. Keep doing what you're doing." So it's, for me personally, it's always this striving to, how can we do this event a little better? How can we do this a little better? Because at the end of the day, people are trusting us to come to our events so they can now meet all these other hiring companies and veteran service organizations that we trust. And every one of us are a piece to a puzzle.
That, once again, well said. The reach of WholeVet is growing to the point where I have a day job, which I don't, this is a cast about you, so I'm not going to get into my job and what I do. But I was at a client's house, and I had my WholeVet hat on earlier this week.
Thank you, sir.
Not a problem. I love wearing it. I'm a hat guy, as everybody would know who knows me, and I love wearing it. I wear this hat almost every day. And I was at a client's house, and I was doing a repair, and a gentleman came out, and I had never met this gentleman, not once, not in my life. Came up and looked at the hat, pointed at me, and said, "Dale Robbins." And I says, "Yeah." He says, "I know WholeVet," and it had changed his life and some of his friends' lives. And when that happened just a few days ago, I said, this is something, we're on the right path. This podcast, once again, 4 weeks in the making. And during the course of the past 4 weeks, I've seen it. I've seen folks identifying with WholeVet. I've heard nothing but good things about what WholeVet does. So in my mind, this is just a startup podcast. This is just, for me, like I said about your WholeVet, grassroots, we're just doing what we got to do.
Yep.
And I'm not doing this podcast to be famous or be rich or anything like that. This podcast is for all of you out there who have served, continue to serve, and deserve the recognition.
Yes.
With that being said, when you do come home or you go back to civilian life, there is help for you if you need it. There is support for you. I know a lot of veterans I've heard over the years is when they get out or come back, it's not the same. Obviously, you're changed because of what you've done, whatever your job or whatever you did in the military changes you. So, Dale, what for you when vets come back and they reach out to you? What is one of, and I'm sure there's many, but if you could just touch on maybe one or two things, what are the most common things you hear from vets and what questions they might have for you?
So I'll come at that from a little bit of a different angle. I already knew the answer, but I wanted to hear it from veterans. So several years ago, we started WholeVet, and I had already heard these guys and ladies talk about it, but I wanted to ask the question so I could answer this type of question from them and not me. We had one of our board members she's no longer on the board. She stepped off, which that is how boards operate. And I looked at her one day and I said, why do you believe in WholeVet? We were just getting to know each other. Why do you believe in the cause? Not only WholeVet, but the cause. And she was a medic with the Guard and had been deployed at least once. And she looked at me and got tears in her eyes, and then she looked away. She said, "My transition was terrible. I never want anyone to go through what I went through." And I asked her and I asked others, I said, "What's the one thing you miss?" And most of the time I couldn't even get the question out. And she answered, she said, "The brotherhood, the camaraderie." That's the thing that, at least from my vantage point, that a lot of our veterans, and it resonates with me from things our family has been through, it's made our family a lot stronger and closer, and the bonds are stronger. So kind of two ways to answer that question. What I am seeing, and I'm getting a little bit off your question, but there are veterans taking care of veterans. There are veterans doing things on the quote-unquote grassroots level. There's the Veteran Business Collective. I'm going to drop names on purpose now. The Veteran Business Collective in Wilmington, the Veteran Business Collective in Jacksonville, the Raleigh Veteran Connect in the greater Raleigh RTP area. This has been veterans coming together to support veterans and specifically small businesses. But I know the leaders in their hearts, if we can come together every month and form our network and keep growing our network, and can we get that guy or lady that may be at risk out and bring them back into the tribe kind of thing. So it's that. Now, for our events, by the way, on paper, they look like they're focused on the transitioning service member, or TSM. They're open to all veterans, no matter age, etc., and we really push for military spouses to be at our events. We have been invited to be at a hiring fair at Fort Bragg, for instance, with the WTB years ago. We've been down to MARSOC, Marine Special Operations Command Resource Fairs. And specifically down there, I'm asking these Marines, now these are our warriors of warriors, MARSOC. They've been there, done that. And I'll never forget, this dude and his wife came up to the table one day. He's about 6'3", 6'4". I mean, he's rocked. He's ready to jock, right? He's got his wife. I think they had a baby stroller. And I looked at him and I said, so what do you want to do when you get out? And he said, sir, 100% without a doubt, don't have a clue what I want to do when I get out. And then he started laughing. So at our events, back to, we want to encourage and inspire and connect. So at our events, we have hiring companies that have local and national footprints in different industries. Pike, Advanced Auto Parts, on down the line. NC Biotechnology Center was with us at the last event. So we want to have these resources so that that guy or lady, they've probably spent their whole adult life in the military. Now they're facing a transition. Or maybe that veteran in 2020 when we went virtual, they got laid off and he's 50 and he's thinking of making a career change. And we were putting together workshops focused on software development. And by the way, Dale really doesn't speak on those. I can barely spell software development. but these things, to the knowledge and the wisdom and the resources to bring, so that when they tell you, I don't know, well, have you thought of this, thought of that, if that answers the question. That is a common theme in talking to transitioning service members.
It does answer. And what I took away from what you said, part of it was the camaraderie, and that, I can be honest, it is real. So last year I worked for a company, a corporate company, and the home office is in Connecticut. And I was speaking to my father one night, and I says, hey, Dad, I'm going to, Connecticut. And so he says, I have a buddy from the Corps that lives in that area. And I said, get out of here. And he says, no, I think he's there. And, social media, reaching out, they connect again. Now, they haven't seen each other since mid-60s. I don't know exact date. So my father says, I'm going to meet you up there. I drove up there. He says, I'm going to meet you there. And it's hard to describe this. So I'll paint the picture. So I get to the hotel. My dad shows up, and his buddy from the Corps shows up, and the hug, the embrace, the eye contact, it was like they were right back in boot. It was like right back. And he hadn't seen this gentleman since, like I said, mid-60s. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. They've never forgotten. It was to the point my father brought the Marine Corps book, and they were looking through the book of old pictures together. Unbelievable. And I thought, from the few friends I keep really close, we had a tight bond, but nothing like this. This was, like you said, a brotherhood.
Deep.
They were in it. They were in it together. They made it through it together and never forgot each other. And that, to me, once again, was last year, very inspirational. Because if I can have a relationship with others like that, we can make a difference.
Yeah.
Everybody can make a difference. Yeah. It's different when you go into a situation where your life is trusted on the person to your right and to your left. You're responsible for them. They're responsible for you. You understand that. It's an unspoken bond. And for this cast being Memorial Day, I have nothing but the utmost respect for the military. And to have just one day to remember those who have fallen, those who have given everything for this country. To me, I wish there was more than one day. It is so crucial for everybody listening to understand that this is real deal stuff. This isn't, games. This isn't like I said with the mayor on the last cast, smoke and mirrors. These men and women are doing what they got to do so we can do what we want to do. Once again, selfishly, unselfish. Not to walk around and say who they are, what they did, and what they're about. Most of the time, unless you come across a vet with a hat or a jacket or some kind of identifying piece of, a shirt or a hat or anything like that, you won't know the unspoken heroes.
Yep.
And to what you're doing, it sounds like a lot of the unspoken heroes can go to WholeVet and be heard.
Yeah.
Because they're in an environment where they have that brotherhood, they have that connection. Everybody in that room, for the most part, knows what the other one's been through to an extent. We have different branches that participate in different things, but it's one team, one dream. I always said that. I respect every single branch of the military. So with that being said, what is your next transitional gathering, if you have one set? What is the next plan for WholeVet in terms of gathering everybody together and spreading the word?
So our next transition event will be in Jacksonville at Coastal Carolina Community College, September the 18th. That date is penciled in. Once we get into the new fiscal year, that'll be in ink, so to speak. So we'll be in Jacksonville September 18th. We will be back at North Carolina State in October. Before I forget, you triggered something. There are different quote-unquote grassroots efforts, we want to call it that, to bring veterans together. So Military Missions in Action, MMIA, right down the street in Fuquay Arena. They have, I believe, a monthly coffee at the Fainting Goat. So why am I dropping names of other nonprofits when we need to bring in money? Because the need for money is very, very real, but foundational to our belief in what we do is we're a piece to a puzzle. We can't be everywhere and do everything. Who do we trust? We trust MMIA. Who do we trust? We trust Hickory for Vets. We trust the Raleigh Veteran Connect and the VBC and et cetera. So I always will tell veterans about what they're doing. Even one interaction, even one cup of coffee, even a bottled water and a conversation can inspire somebody. It doesn't have to be an event. So we do. Later this year, we have 2 more transition events. For next year, I have requests to add 2 more transition events to our calendar, back to the need for funding to bring in someone, and then we'll expand. Memorial Day. I was getting ready this morning. I'm like, I'm going to ride my bike in today. I haven't been on that bike in a couple of weeks. And it's never lost on me. I have this thought when I think about something like this, like our conversation. None of this is scripted. You probably had some ideas in your mind of what you wanted to talk about. None of this is scripted. This is real. This is no BS. People's lives are real, man. We're not here. I've said this about WholeVet. We are not here to compete. We are here to collaborate, and more on that hopefully in just a couple of minutes. But I've thought about it many times. I'm going to go get in my car, my truck, my bike. My wife, my kids, my daughters are able to go pretty much wherever they want to go in safety. Why? Because there are guys and ladies that have put on these uniforms, and they all sacrifice. I call it the common sacrifice. I have never been in a foreign land on Christmas that I couldn't see my children. I have never been in a foreign land during their birthdays that I couldn't see my children or my wife. But I know a bunch of dudes and ladies that have made that sacrifice willingly because they love this country. And Memorial Day, honestly, I know it may be shocking to people that know me. I get pretty quiet because I've never lost a loved one in service to our country. I'm not a Gold Star spouse or parent or child, and I never served. And you know what I do around Memorial Day? I listen to these guys and ladies that have lost. There's a veteran that I see at the gym, and I looked at him yesterday, and I said, quick question while you're working out. Do you say Happy Memorial Day or not? And he looked at me, and I said, I want to hear your opinion. The end of it was, he said, Dale, I don't get offended about much. I don't even really think about that. He lost his leg in service to our country. So yeah, he wouldn't get really caught up in a lot of stuff. But I told him I was the ignorant masses for years that said Happy Memorial Day, until I started hearing people that had suffered the pain of loss, and like it's not that happy for everyone. So Memorial Day, I think for a lot of us in the veteran service space, this may sound dramatic or a cliche. Every day is Memorial Day. Every day is Veteran Day. But this country has set aside a day, really a weekend, to bring the reminder to us through our busy lives. There are a lot of people, a lot of families that made that ultimate sacrifice. And so what do we do with WholeVet? We try to honor those sacrifices by serving the people that will come to us. And part of that way of serving is having trusted partners in the space, this platform that we trust. Hire Heroes USA will come to every event at NC State with us. They're a national outfit, got a great relationship with their team here in North Carolina, in Raleigh. If I don't reach out to them, they'll reach out to me and say, hey, you want us to come and do resume reviews? And what does that have to do with Memorial Day? Everything, because we're here to serve the brothers and sisters of those that this country has asked these men and women to go to foreign lands and fight for us. And regardless, and I'm apolitical just like you, I don't care what beast someone associates themselves with, whether it's an elephant or a jackass. I don't care. They have a responsibility to make decisions based upon integrity, because our sons and daughters and men and women put on those uniforms and then have to go and serve in foreign lands to protect our way of life. I got on that bike this morning. There was no threat of an IED. There was no threat of some roaming band of whatever coming through our town and destroying it. We live in relative safety here. And we are so blessed and fortunate to live in this country. And for us, and you are too, you're serving right now, to be able to give back and serve those that do and have served us, it's a deep honor, deep honor.
It is. And once again, a lot to take in. That, the passion, I'm sitting here and everybody's listening, but to sit here and look in Dale's eyes, this is passion. This gentleman's not up here just giving you a song and dance. He's not just trying to sound good on the mic. This is real. And you had mentioned earlier, this is a real conversation. This is something that, and I will compliment you, and I know you'll it's not about you, but what you do is amazing. It is life-changing. And with this cast and what we're talking about, I really hope anyone who's listening, please reach out to myself, to WholeVet. Let's reach out further. Let's get this expanded. Let's help those who need help. Let's just get it. Let's get it going. Let's do something. A lot of people will talk. I do my part. I do this. I do that. Well, you got to go for it.
Yeah.
I had a podcast the other day with Mayor Bob, and I had asked him about nonprofits and charity and things like that. And he said he had very wise words. He says, do your due diligence, look it up, find out what sticks for you. And it doesn't have to be money. It could be time.
Yep.
It could just be volunteering for something. Obviously, money helps because it allows things to be resourced and used in the proper manner. WholeVet, to me, I am so appreciative and so happy that here at the shop, I met Dale about a month ago, and from day one, we hit it off, and we understood each other very well. And I think that's coming across this cast pretty definitively. It's just I can't, and I usually use the word great in my cast, but I'm trying to stay away from it today because it's not about me and a catchphrase or anything like that. This is for everyone out there who served, has served, continues to serve. This is for you.
Yes.
It's not for me. It's not for Dale. WholeVet is just an avenue that you can travel to help you.
Yep.
And what you said about, you changed my mindset right on the fly, asking someone about Happy Memorial Day and that person having an injury from being in combat. Powerful. You just changed my mindset because it's real. It's not a one day, a year, or a weekend. that individual is living it every day.
Yep.
Every time you get up in the morning, it's remember you're there, you're in it.
Yep.
And really, I'm kind of at a loss of words from now, and most of you know I can talk and talk and talk, but this is heavy stuff, and this is what I was looking forward to all month. This was it. It was the inspiration, the motivational, just real deal stuff. This is real, people. I know I said it already once or twice, but this is real. That's 4, because it has to be said. This has to be out there so people can digest it, understand it, look into it, and just be a part of it. A lot of podcasts, and I'm not knocking anyone, you have podcasts that are just crazy stuff, random stuff. You know, I even have a slapstick podcast with Addison Allgood. This is a real podcast, folks. This is for you. I'm going to say it over and over just to hit home. This podcast is to inspire truly and motivate truly, and to get information out that sometimes you just don't know. Sometimes it's hard to get. Sometimes you don't have a computer. You could be at a friend's house right now listening to Spotify. If you are listening, this is for you.
Yep.
In many ways.
Yep.
Now, before we wrap up, I want to just go right back around, and I had mentioned collaboration. I know you wanted to speak upon that real quick. So what did you have to say about collaboration?
When I put WholeVet on paper, there were 6 bullet points, which really are 5 programs. So the first 2 were corporate campus visits, a transition event held at a corporate campus. We knew that worked. The 5th year of the Cisco event, we had moved it from the Cisco campus to NC State to the McKimmon Center. Bigger space, more centrally located, and then it had more visibility within the RTP corporate community. So the second bullet point were military career transition days. On paper, even says meant to be on or near military bases or educational institutions. Then a mentorship program, a youth program, which is desperately needed. Desperately. A marriage program, desperately needed. And then MVEC, Military and Veteran Enablement Coalition, MVEC. We had done this under the Cisco umbrella from 2014 to 17 with another acronym, another name. It was really simple. Let's bring together hiring companies once a quarter. We'll move it around from Blue Cross Blue Shield to NetApp to SAS. They had the best food, by the way. Cisco, and let's meet and share hiring best practices. Let's share blah, blah, blah. Well, it took on a life of its own, where then we started bringing in speakers from nonprofits and other organizations like the General Hugh Shelton Leadership Center. Great work they do there within the General's vision and his own foundation for growing different generations of leaders. I'm dropping names on purpose because we believe in these people. Mm-hmm. So we do that, start WholeVet, and different people that have been a part of that, we call that NCVEC, kept after me. When are you going to start MVEC? When are you going to start MVEC? We loved it. We got to get that going again. So we did in October at NC State. And we had 70 people from at least 20 different organizations from across North Carolina that came to the McKimmon Center in October of 2023. It was beautiful, man. We had, quote-unquote, small nonprofits. We had big ones like the USO and Our Heroes. And I got up there the second time I had the microphone to make a 5 minutes of kind of closing comments. Joanna DeMott, I'll go ahead and throw her name out there, as our MVEC director, military spouse, lives down around Lejeune. She lived a life as a spouse for 23 years. Her husband retired about 5 years ago out of the Marine Corps. So she's really leading MVEC for us and carried the day. That day was awesome. She did a great job, Joanna, if you hear this. She knows how much I appreciate and love her. But I get up there, and I'm looking at 70 different faces, and I had a little fun with it. I said, okay, as I had shared with you earlier, anytime you have the microphone, you have the opportunity to offend at least one person in the room. So how many of you call it Fort Liberty? And people laughed, and 4 people raised their hands. I said, Fort Bragg. Hand shot up. I said, okay, I got that out of the way. I could have just offended somebody, and everyone's laughing. But I made the comment, and this is where the fire and passion really came out. It just came out. I said, there should not be a competitive mindset within the veterans service space. Let me say this really loud for the people that are not in this room or sitting in the back. There should be no freaking competitive mindset within the veteran service space. I said, I know I'm preaching to the choir because you're all here. We're here to collaborate. To collaborate. WholeVet, USO, any others, no one can do it all. We're all pieces to a puzzle. I gave the microphone to Joanna, and I walked by a lady that, I won't name names, but leads the Fort Bragg effort for a big national nonprofit. And I leaned in her ear. I said, was that a little hard or a little harsh or whatever? Mm-hmm. And she leaned into my ear and said, Dale, somebody's got to say it. I said, well, I guess I'm the guy that'll stand up and say it. And there are a lot of others, by the way, that will stand up and say it. We collaborate in the space so that we can serve those that we're called to serve.
A little lost of words just because there is a time where things have to be said, and it takes a lot of courage to say it because you never know what the outcome's going to be. But when you talk with sincerity and honesty, it comes across. This is something that I'm going to talk with Dale with on this podcast right as we're recording it. But I wanted to say to you, Dale, that anything that I can do as far as volunteering or donating or anything I could do to support WholeVet, I'm here for you, man.
Thank you.
I wear the hat, which is a small thing to do. But I could tell everybody listening the hat does strike up a lot of conversation. And it's really a conversation starter, a lot. Here in North Carolina, we have a lot of military that are active, that are vets. And it's so important to, once again, know when you are finished with your service and you are transitioning to have the knowledge and to have the resources available to you to not be rewarded, but to be understood, mission accomplished. Job well done.
Yep.
Job well done. So with that, we ran a little long, but this is good. I'm gonna probably run this out because it was just really good stuff. I know that everybody knows the Mr. Addison Allgood does all the editing, but I think Addison's going to have to do very little with this, which is good. Once again, not using great because everybody knows great's my tagline, and today it's just not about that. I get repetitive on the cast sometimes, but it's a passion. It's the truth. It's from the heart. So with that being said, let's keep this nation, our military, on our minds, not just this weekend or this day, every day. Every day be appreciative of the freedoms and the rights that we have to do what we can do. As long as you will abide by the laws and do the right thing, we have that freedom. So, Dale, your time, this gentleman has, his schedule is booked. And for him, I'm saying him like you're not here, but for you to take the time out today to come down to the shop, speak with me on this on Memorial Day weekend means the world to me.
To me too, man.
And this was something I've been chomping at the bit for this.
Me too. Thank you.
And to release it on Memorial Day I just can't describe in words. So everybody listening, appreciate it. Dale, thank you so much for being here. Is there anything you want to leave the audience with?
Yeah, you said Memorial Day again. I honestly thought about this weekend throughout this week when I thought about coming here. Busy week. Everybody's got busy weeks. And I almost feel inadequate to speak about it because I haven't had certain experiences. But to those that have lost family members, that have given the ultimate sacrifice, they should know that they're not only just us two guys and Addison and Mindy Allgood. There are a lot of people, whether it's verbalized or not, that are appreciative of that sacrifice. To the veterans and to the active duty and the spouses that continue to sacrifice, we appreciate them and love them. We do this because of gratitude and love. So this really is for all of the people that we serve. But thank you for your voice, for what you're doing, for wearing the gear. It does continue to help get the word out. So thank you, and thank you for having me today.
With that, everybody, enough said. This is Chet at the Shop for Chet Hardaway, Mr. Dale Robbins. We'll see you soon.